Warcraft has a deep secret. Buried within the ancient Tauren tales, passed down over thousands of years, is a story. One of the Earth Mother and her family. Within this story, we find much that is suspiciously relevant. And being part of folk and fairy tales, you know that Blizzard want us to think deeply about this. For in our tale of the Earth Mother and Embrace, which is the telling of what comes after, we learn even more. So join me today as we find out the truth in the myth. That's squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming. Today's sponsor, again, saved my ass. The Pale Beyond, our game. Its reveal was almost upon me, and nothing was done. I needed a website really quickly over the weekend or I would have embarrassed myself in front of our publisher. So I hopped into Squarespace's very easy to use site builder and I built Bellular.games. It came into being. This time I even tried some custom CSS and code injection-y things to do some neat things. But of course, it still is mobile responsive. What's cool is you've got the easy-to-use tools and then loads of room to do the fancy business if you want to do that. And they've even got really cool features like memberships, if you want to do that, email lists, e-commerce, and loads of other fantastic features. So from what I built a while ago, literally in 40 minutes on the sofa with my iPad, using their award-winning templates, to a build like this one, which is a bit more custom. It was done over a weekend by a total web dev noob like myself. Squarespace is the fast and easy way for anyone to have a fantastic looking web presence. And all these super fast tools mean that even if you do want to do the fancy stuff, the rest doesn't get left behind. Great example. I did all the fancy stuff. I had barely any time left to add the team page. But they had a whole pre-made block. I just had to put the images in. Done! Team page sorted. First impressions count, so have a great web presence with squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming. Promo code Bellular Gaming to get you 10% off your first purchase. So thanks to them, and let's go. Folk and fairy tales had two myths, the Eyes of the Earth Mother and Embrace. Each of these myths is about the relationship between Azeroth, called the Earth Mother, the Sun, called Anshay, and the two moons, called the White Lady and the Blue Child. Now at first, these stories sound like a world soul struggle against old gods. But through Zereth Mortis, we've discovered that Azeroth might be so much more than what we thought originally. Now, realizing this changes how we understand these ancient myths, and, well, that they are. They're ancient myths. They're stories retold over thousands and thousands of years. And of course, in that myth, we will find truth. Eyes of the Earth Mother begins in a time before time. A time before time. Keep that in your mind. The Earth Mother, Azeroth, traveled an empty cosmos, hunted by creeping, corrupted old ones. Not old gods, old ones. She wanted to give birth, but she needed a sanctuary, so she created a planet and its elements. Now, to me, this kind of sounds First Ones, right? I mean, a time before time, creating planets. Makes you think. Well, in her planet, and safe, she gave birth to Anshay, who brought life burning and bright, and Musha, who brought rest, tranquil, and healing. The twins grew, and everyone got on great. But the Earth Mother was always vigilant for the old ones. She needed to sleep, so she put Anshay and Musha in her eyes to keep them safe. Whilst sleeping, the first winter arrived and brought chaos. The children learnt to temper the seasons from their mother's eyes so the new life could evolve. The next time the mother awoke, she found the Shuhalo, who the narrator believes to be the Tauren. But this myth is talking about events that could be interpreted as being far, far, far before the first Tauren or Yangol. So, who could this early race actually be? The next time the Earth Mother slept, the Old Ones stretched their influence and corrupted the Shu'Halo, forcing Anshay and Musha to wake her up. She then cried a single tear, which turned out to be Losho, the Blue Child, one of Azeroth's moons. Realizing that she herself could also be corrupted then, the Earth Mother ripped her children from her eyes, who then went on a hunt for the Old Ones. The children beat the Old Ones, but Anshay takes a grave wound in the chest. The Earth Mother tells Musha to always remain with Anshay, or he will die. She also realizes that even with victory, the only way to stop the Old Ones was for her to eternally sleep. She told Anshay and Musha to take to the sky and become the sun and the moon, taking Losho with them. Their job was to stop any darkness that got past the Earth Mother. So with that, the Earth Mother, Azeroth, dug deep into the core of the world as a final stand against the Old Ones. This could be precisely why Azeroth has been dormant all of this time, up to extremely recently. She's seemingly been locked in some sort of primordial battle. What if Azeroth, though, was some form of First One? I mean, Azerite is in Zereth Mortis in the Shadowlands. That's quite something to think about, isn't it? But first, I have to talk about the other tale. The Embrace takes place after the Earth Mother story, and there are some key differences between these stories, such as the Blue Child being the daughter of the White Lady instead of sister. Basically, one or two things are a little bit different, right? The only species that's mentioned in this story is actually the humans, which sort of tells me that this is a story from perhaps a Titan Keeper handed down to the Vrykul and then handed down to us in some sort of oral tradition. The White Lady kept Azeroth safe, and although she loved the life on the planet, she was lonely. From that loneliness, the Blue Child was born. They live in bliss until the inquisitive Blue Child grows up and leaves her mother. In a misguided attempt to find the child, the White Lady caused all sorts of grief for the people of Azeroth, like burning so bright the day became eternal. The misery wrought upon the planet eventually reached the White Lady through a haunting poem, and so she stopped. Now the Blue Child returned after having a life-affirming adventure through the cosmos, dancing with distant stars and moons. This sounds quite literally cosmic, as if whoever the Blue Child is referring to in the lore periodically disappeared into the cosmos, maybe hanging out with other pantheons, exploring. Now above Azeroth then, every 430 years, the moons embrace again. And in fact, it was under that embrace that the dragonflights were empowered. So the Earth Mother is Azeroth. This is actually something that is confirmed in the lore. But this story, it actually puts her at the beginning of everything. The force that brought the cosmos together in a time before time. You see, Alfarine, that broker who we found the research documents of, there was, according to his documents, a seventh force in the cosmos. One that existed where the other six meet and interact. He believed that the material realm was the nexus at which the cosmos met. Now, take a look at this cosmology chart that shows Azeroth and the elementals that she created at the dead center of the material realm. Okay, add that to Vulcan fairy tales. Bam. It's clicked, hasn't it? What I'm getting at here is that Azeroth is central to creation. And that's reflected in the Earth Mother story, a story that Blizzard published last year. I mean, very recently, so clearly relevant to the lore. Another instantly recognizable figure is Musha, or, as we would say, Elune. That's an old association, Musha, Elune, But these two stories illustrate how Elune is Azeroth's daughter and is charged with protecting the planet. So, Elune is Azeroth's daughter? Well, not necessarily. In the Tauren tale, the white and blue moon are sisters, but in the Embrace, they are mother and daughter. This is just a very similar overall story, but being told pretty damn differently in two different civilizations and their own mythos. So the idea of family here is a little bit fluid. I mean, come on, is Elune literally the Winter Queen's sister? No, not like that. The Winter Queen was 3D printed. So, it could be that Elune is a lesser deity linked to Azeroth. Or Azeroth could have birthed Elune using First One's technology. Could be something going on in the Xerath of the Lightlands for all we know. But regardless, their association is always quite solidly linked. Elune seems to be able to use Azeroth's First One's power or magic, as in the Embrace, Elune, she literally creates the blue child. That's a moon. That's a lot of power. Now, this could point us toward what Xal'atath meant in the Legion expansion, when Xal'atath called Elune an upstart goddess. So could it be that Elune is a deity who freely uses this First One's magic? All signs, I think, point to us finding this out pretty soon. Okay, we've talked about the Earth Mother, we've talked about Musha, now it's time to get crazy and talk about Anshay. This is where it gets speculative. We don't know who Anshay, the Sun, is. We know that he wielded dual blades and was quick to action. In Embrace, he's described as arrogant and scolding, loving no one but himself. There is but one candidate here in my view, and it doesn't completely make sense just yet. Is this. Anshay is the jailer, Zovaal. The most direct evidence is the wound in the chest. I mean, come on. But there are a few other connections as well. Elune and Zovaal are similar in that they both refused whatever their cosmic duty was. That's why the Winter Queen felt that her sister, Elune, was estranged. Xal'atath calls Elune an upstart goddess. Look at Zovaal. Yeah, he turned evil, unlike Elune, but both of them turned against what their makers seemingly intended. You know? Two rogues, one good, one evil, one of the plane of death, one of the plane of life. This opens up a story where Zovaal and Elune were once childlike deities under Azeroth. I mean, this really is some time before time stuff. You know, where she seemingly taught them how to change the nature of the cosmos or something. We could even look at a whole soul split situation with, say, the jailer, just like Uther and Sylvanas, because you look at the jailer right now and you think, he's so evil. He's so evil. How on earth could he be tied to Azeroth, our lovely planet? Well, look what happened when Uther's soul was split. Even look at the visual representation of Sylvanas, the old time capsule of the Ranger General, you know, and the newer Banshee Queen. Look what happened to some of our characters, like whenever, you know, the Shadowlands cast, whenever their sigils were removed. So, Zovaal, I mean, we pretty much from the Pyromancer League know what he looked like before all of this went down, at least at one point, perhaps what he was intended to look like. So, with his sigil taken, they kind of took his light. They took everything good from him. And that's how you can tie the sun into this. And there is some circumstantial evidence as well. The jailer's epithet is the Dark One, so the opposite of the Light One. His realm is known as the Maw, which devours all. Now in the Verisa short story, in that same Folk and Fairy Tales book, the jailer is described with a hole in his chest that sucks in all light. Anshay fell because of a wound on his chest. Zovaal was transformed into the Dark One because of that wound in his chest. Could the jailer be a black hole where Anshay was once the sun? I think this is bloody interesting. This is the kind of lore that I really enjoy. The Blue Child is not such a big name in the Warcraft setting, but the thing here is, she's someone in the setting who I think we may have already met. The hints we have are that she's always birthed in response to something. Either the Old Ones in the Tauren telling of this myth, or, of course, an embrace of Elune's grief. She is the sister of Elune, or the daughter of Elune in these stories. And perhaps that difference is telling. If Embrace is a story from the Titan Keepers, then who do they think Elune's sister could be? It could be the Winter Queen. And the thing distorted in the Embrace wasn't her leaving, but Elune abandoning her sister. It's probably the Winter Queen, but right now, the happy and curious nature of the Blue Child doesn't exactly mesh with the cold and distant Winter Queen, unless, of course, the Winter Queen was different in her youth. Shu'halo. The Earthmother story ends by saying the Shu'halo might have changed, but Azeroth will always be there for them. I think that might literally be referencing us. We are the Shu'halo, maybe the children of Azeroth. Of course, a Tauren teller of this tale will think it means the Tauren. What if it is, in fact, the children of Azeroth? That brings up a lot of questions about, well, everything. I mean, how thorough was the Black Empire at shaping life on the planet? How did the Titans order the planet? How do these things fit in? We've talked here about how we're unique because we bring all these forces together. If Azeroth's the central deity to all the cosmic forces, then are we the Shu'halo, and what does that mean for us? And then, of course, it's time to talk about the Old Ones. Who are Old Ones? Because they're not old gods. I think there's something older. They might even be the evil at the core of this setting. They're creeping and corrupting, the antithesis to Azeroth's creation. They could perhaps be a distorted image of the Eternal One's wounding Zoval's chest, like Anshay, or that story could be conflated with the evil that hunted Azeroth at the very beginning. There's one truly mysterious aspect of the Shadowlands, though. One which has, right now, basically no answers and no leads. And that is the Devourers. They're from the in-between. Basically, from my read, the bits of the Shadowlands that, well, weren't ordered by the first ones, weren't shaped by the first ones. And what are they? They're creeping, they're corrupting, and they're doing that into every single zone. They devour everything. They just consume anima. We know one of Maldraxxus's functions is to contain the Devourers. So these are a known threat in the Shadowlands. Could Maldraxxus have been the first one's way of defending against the corruption of these Old Ones? And could those Old Ones be perhaps the true maximal threat in the Warcraft universe? This has been quite a journey. It really has been, and maybe this is a video you'll need to sort of do twice for it all to sink in, because we are talking about two different myths from two different cultures and how those could map onto everything else that we know, and of course in a way that basically is not at all literal and is all allegorical, as these sorts of things tend to be. And to be clear, none of these are hills that we are ready to die on. But let's wrap this theory up. The Jailer is the Black Sun form of Anshay. Elune has been given the task of protecting Azeroth by, Azeroth the planet, by the Earth Mother, who's, actually Azeroth. There's probably some primordial evil that we will have to deal with in the future, and Azeroth herself could actually be a first one. Or, to be honest, something even more fundamental. The point at which all the forces intersect. For me, this lore has big potential, and it actually does make me think. And when I jump into this, Zoval, just boring. Musha? Interesting. It's that thing. when we're dealing with this lore, when it is the myth, the culture of the peoples of Azeroth, it's rich and it's beautiful. There's a lot to it. I think when we over-explain it via details, we really suck a lot of the fun out of it. Because it's really in going through this video that I think, Jared when he was writing it, me when I was going over the script, kind of reviewing it, tweaking things, getting my own thoughts on this issue really dialed in, it reignited what got me into World of Warcraft lore in the first place. So I'd say, Blizzard, continue these sorts of storylines, and maybe at the start of 10.0, just try to tell us what our sort of rough state in the setting is, and then just kind of leave it at that. Let us go clear raids, dive into dungeons with our friends, and advance the lore in a way that is far less just expanding a whole bunch of details and details and details, and far more that is just rooted in the rich culture and history of all of the peoples that we deal with. Because, as far as I'm concerned, the best bit of lore to come out in the Shadowlands is indeed folk and fairy tales. And you could say that that means nothing coming from me, given that I do not really like Shadowlands lore, but no. To me, folk and fairy tales is like great Warcraft lore. Okay, so that's where I'm at in this. Tell me, what do you think? If this lore turned out amazing, would you actually give it a chance? I really do want to know what you think about this, because we're all still trying to figure this out, so let us know. Thank you for watching, and with that, I'll see you next time.